Hello, and welcome to Aegon's song, for his is the song of ice and fire. In this series, we'll be analysing the scenarios surrounding all of the main protagonists in their final chapters, either at the end of A Dance with Dragons or in the Winds of Winter sample chapters, looking at where they are, who they're with, and the events that have just happened, and trying to determine how these scenes might play out going forwards, beginning with Daenerys Targaryen. In Daenerys' final chapter in A Dance with Dragons, we find her lost on the Dothraki Sea, sheltering in the cave that Drogon has made his home, and surviving on the charred remains of the dragon's leftovers. She attempts to fly Drogon back to Meereen, but without success. Dany remembers that the Dragon Lords of Old Valyria had controlled their mounts with binding spells and sorcerous horns. Dany made do with a word and a whip. However, she had found that neither whip nor words could turn Drogon if he did not wish to be turned. Eventually, Daenerys decides to try and walk back to Meereen, following the little stream until it meets with the great river Skazadan. But with a sickness and fever from eating strange berries and drinking muddy water, Dany's progress soon slows to a halt. She's hungry and thirsty and needs to rest until the fever passes. When she emerges from her sleep, she hears a rider in the tall grass. She sees the Dothraki as the Dothraki sees Drogon, and flees back to his Khalasar. Dany mounts her dragon and takes to the air. The Khalasar appears below them. Drogon hunts down one of the horses, landing to feast upon its flesh. Dany dismounts to eat a handful of charred horse meat, before wiping her hands on a ragged undertunic at the sound of horses approaching. That was how Khal Draco had found her, the last line of the chapter explains, when 100 mounted warriors emerged from the drifting smoke. So the question that we're posing is, what happens next? We know that on the show, Dany is taken captive and presented to the Dosh Khaleen at Vaes Dothrak, where she burns the cows and takes control of all their Khalasars. But in the book, with Drogon beside her, things are going to go a little differently. In fact, at this point, one thing we can say with absolute certainty is that Khal Draco and his blood rider Maego are about to get well and truly flame grilled. Dany thinks often through the books about Aroa, the lamb girl she had saved, only for Draco to rape her, pass her around his blood riders, and then murder her after her son and stars Khal Drogo had died. Aroa? Asked Dany, remembering the frightened child she had saved outside the city of the Landmen. Maego seized her, who is Khal Draco's blood rider now, said Drogo. He mounted her high and low and gave her to his cow, and Draco gave her to his other blood riders. They were 6. When they were done with her, they cut her throat. It was her fate, Khaleesi, said Aegon. It was a cruel fate, Dany said, yet not so cruel as Maego's will be. I promise you that, by the old gods and the new, by the lamb god and the horse god and every god that lives. I swear it by the mother of mountains and the womb of the world. Before I am done with them, Maego and Khal Draco will plead for the mercy they showed Aroa. So no speculation needed here. It's goodbye to Khal Draco and his blood rider Maego. Dany will then take over command of the Khalasar, for the Dothraki follow only strength, and nothing or no one is stronger or more fearsome than a dragon and its rider. So that's what will happen in Dany's first chapter in the Winds of Winter. After this point, we're getting into the realm of speculation. From here, it seems probable that Dany will travel the Dothraki Sea, heading back towards Meereen, killing cows and collecting Khalasars along the way, ultimately achieving the same result as in the show, but going about it in a different way. The only issue here could be if Drogon decides not to play along, but it seems unlikely that he'll leave Dany in the hands of the Dothraki, putting her in danger. So let's assume that Drogon does play along. Then the next question to consider is, what might Dany find when she returns to Meereen? Is the war still raging on? Has Sir Barristan and the troops loyal to the Queen managed to defeat the Wise Masters? Or have the Yunkai and Giscari legions taken back the city? In the context of our story, it would seem most likely, to me at least, that the war will drag on over an extended period of time, for reasons that will be explained in the Barristan Sell Me What Happens Next video. But I believe the Queen's men will be grouped together at the gates of Meereen, preventing the Yunkai and Giscari legions from entering the city. Then at that point, enter Daenerys, and goodbye to the not-so-wise masters. Whatever she finds upon her return, Dany could be leading a Khalazar of perhaps 100,000 mounted Dothraki screamers, not to mention reuniting with all three dragons. As unruly as they are, they do seem to respond to their mother when she needs them. Defeating the combined forces from Yunkai, Gis and Karth will leave Dany with more than enough ships to sail across the narrow sea, finally reaching Westeros. For as she realised whilst lost on the Dothraki Sea, whilst following the little stream, Meereen is not her home and never would be. It's time for Daenerys to go west.